Welcome back again to online worship at Montgomery Church. We're delighted that you're with us once again today. And I'd like to take the opportunity to invite you to be part of our online Vacation Bible School sessions. They start out on July 19th, and we'll have supplies in a rotation around our parking lot so you can come and pick up the things that you'll need to be able to do your own VBS in your very own family room. It should be completely different than anything we've done before, and so very exciting. We hope that you'll be a part of it. But for today, let's come and begin our worship together. This week's scripture lesson, we continue with the story of Nehemiah, who's found favor in the eyes of the king and has been granted permission to begin the restoration of Jerusalem, with timber provided by the king for his construction. And here we meet three new characters, Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem. While their names are unfamiliar, their behavior might just remind you of someone you might know. The story resumes in Nehemiah chapter 2. When Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite official heard about this, they were very much disturbed that someone had come to promote the welfare of the Israelites. I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few men. I had not told anyone about what God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one that I was riding on. By night I went out through the valley gate, toward the jackal well and the dung gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem which had been broken down, and its gates which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on toward the fountain gate and the king's pool, but there was not enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. And finally I turned back and re-entered through the valley gate. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, because as yet I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or nobles or officials or any others who would be doing the work. And then I said to them, "You see the trouble we're in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." I also told them about the gracious hand of my God upon me and what the king had said to me. They replied, "Let us start rebuilding." So they began this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arabian heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. "What is this you're doing?" they asked. "Are you rebelling against the king?" I answered them by saying, "The God of heaven will give us success. But as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it."
Every breath that I am able,
Playwright Claire Booth Luce is most often credited with the phrase, "No good deed goes unpunished." And the following story rather illustrates that point. It happens that a worker at one of the main sorting places of the post office finds an unstamped, crudely addressed envelope that has a handwritten invocation to God. He's unable to resist and opens the letter, discovers that it's from an elderly woman distressed because a thief had robbed her of $100. Her claim is that she will be cold and hungry for the rest of the month if she doesn't receive some intervention from the Almighty. So the fellow's heart is just touched by this story and really wants to do something to help. And so he walks around to all of his different colleagues and takes up an impromptu collection and ends up with $96 collected spontaneously. They send it to the woman by special courier the same morning. It's a good feeling. About a week later, the same gentleman notices a similarly addressed envelope. This letter from the same lady, also addressed to God, has another message. This one reads, "Dear God, thank you for the $100. This month would have been so bleak otherwise. P.S. I don't like to complain, but it was $4 short. I just figured it was probably those thieving crooks at the post office." Do you find it as frustrating as I do when you're working hard at a solution, giving your all to see a project through, and someone else is standing there on the sidelines with absolutely no constructive suggestions to make, criticizing everything that you're doing? Welcome to chapter 2 of Nehemiah. We know that Sanballat was the governor of Samaria at the time. Historian Yitzhak Magin claims that Sanballat is actually the person most responsible for the rift between the nations of Samaria and Israel that was still being played out at the time of Jesus. Hence, the story of the Good Samaritan. Sanballat constructed a rival temple on Mount Gerizim. It was not authorized by God. It was not commissioned by the Almighty. It was a mechanism of convenience and to begin a rivalry with those at the temple in Jerusalem. It created havoc for generations to come. Tobiah had his own agenda. He had made arrangements to lease the storerooms of the temple, thereby depriving the Levites, the temple workers, of space to store their worship supplies and food for the Levites themselves. Tobiah was deeply invested in keeping things from being restored to the way they had always been. So it was not surprising that these two rogues began criticizing Nehemiah from the moment he showed up on the scene. This is a life lesson that came to me hard. I always assumed that when I had the best of intentions, that I was working hard to make something happen that would positively benefit the lives of others, taking on the challenge because you see what great things can be accomplished. I thought that many people would just jump right on board when they saw what a great idea it was, and that others, even if they didn't quite agree, would kind of say, you know, you gotta give the guy his props for trying. But no matter what the issue, no matter the project, there's always someone who raises up in opposition. No exceptions. Even a small kindness is not exempt. You squirted too much of that free hand sanitizer on my fingers. These water bottles that you're passing out are awfully small, aren't they? And the larger the project, the more intense the opposition. And so here is Nehemiah, whose heart had been broken as he heard about the conditions back in his homeland, who had spent 4 months praying for God to intervene, who had prevailed upon the king, who had halted construction in Jerusalem not that long ago. But the king gave him a leave of absence and materials for the project. And now that work is about to begin, others step up to criticize. But Nehemiah did not become discouraged. This project was way too important to give up before it even starts. Beloved, over the past several weeks, the heart of this nation has been broken. Our country is a nation of immigrants, and persons of various cultures have come to this nation to seek liberty and prosperity. And persons from a variety of regions have found their place here, so much so that we call ourselves the land of opportunity. All except one culture. Many of their ancestors were brought to this land against their will. They were treated as property, bought and sold, families broken up and separated without a care by those who exploited them for their own personal gain. And while the scourge of slavery has been eliminated in our nation, many of their descendants continue to feel oppressed and exploited. As we have examined the book of Nehemiah together, I have been reluctant to suggest simplistic or fleeting answers to the issues that currently face our nation. Nehemiah sought the mind of God for 4 months as he looked for a vision and a plan for the issues that broke his heart. In addition, one of the things that I have learned in attempting to be an advocate for my mother during her hospitalization and convalescence is that to be an advocate for another, you must first listen and discover their needs, and only then respond to the cries of their heart. It hurts me to hear the desperation of those who say that all of the institutions of this society must be torn down and a whole new social order needs to take its place. Instead, I believe in the ingenuity of our nation and our church. In the 1790s, when parents were concerned about their children being able to read and write, the American Sunday school movement was begun, and the church stepped up to meet the need. In the 1850s, when community leaders had had their hearts broken by the hopelessness that they saw, as men would leave their places of work to spend countless evenings in bars, the Young Men's Christian Association was founded in Boston to help develop healthy bodies, minds, and spirits. In In the 1960s, in the northern portion of Calvert County, here in our own state, there was concern that arose in the community for the lack of health care options. The Smithville United Methodist Church built a clinic and recruited the son of a Presbyterian minister to bring health care to their community. This was in the fine tradition of the Methodists, who have founded hospitals around the world, including the nation capital's own Sibley Hospital. But each time a step forward is taken, there arises opposition. On September 22nd of 1862, Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, ostensibly ending the institution of slavery in our nation. But on April 19th, 1865, just a short time later, John Wilkes Booth conspired with others in a plan to assassinate not only the president, but the vice president and the Secretary of State of the United States in order to throw the nation into chaos and reverse the gains that had been made. William Seward, the Secretary of State, was merely wounded, and the man designated to attack Vice President Johnson lost his nerve. But sadly, Booth murdered one of the greatest leaders in our nation's history. Answers to the things that break the hearts of our nation today will not come quickly, but our resolve must never waver. I believe that perhaps God is stirring in the hearts of some in our own church family to initiate some positive steps forward. To do so, we must follow the leadership of Nehemiah to first enter into the pain of our sisters and brothers. We must seek God for the plan, the vision, the answers. We must plan carefully for the long range. We must certainly expect opposition. But then, as Nehemiah said, if this is of God, it will surely prevail. So when the opposition came, his faith never wavered. His confidence in the provision of God was never in question. Nehemiah stood strong in the face of opposition, determined to bring about the successful accomplishment of the mission God had called him to. Let us be just as faithful as our man Nehemiah.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, oh, I won't be shaken, I won't be shaken. Doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And shame no longer has a place to hide. a chance when I stand in your love.
William Wilberforce, at an early age, was determined to put an end to the institution of slavery in Great Britain. But as a young man, 32 years of age, he became very discouraged and wondered if there was any hope that things might ever change. And those around him began to fear that he was ready to give up. Word came to an elderly friend, John Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement, who on his deathbed demanded pen and paper and wrote a note to his friend Wilberforce. This is what it said: "Unless God has raised you up for this very thing, you will be worn out by the opposition of men and devils. But if God be for you, who can be against you? Are all of them stronger than God? Oh, be not weary of well-doing. Go on in the name of God and in the power of God's might, till even American slavery shall vanish away before it." Wesley actually died 6 days later. And Wilberforce fought on for 45 more years until in 1883, actually 3 days before Wilberforce's own death, the Parliament of Great Britain voted to abolish slavery. Sometimes even the strongest among us needs that voice of encouragement for them. We can be that voice that encourages. Do not grow weary in doing the right thing. Let's take that message beyond this building, beyond our quiet homes, and encourage and challenge all those we know to make a difference in the name of Jesus.